Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your guide today as I rank the worst baseball insert designs of 1994. This is a list that has a lot of honorable mentions because there are a lot of cards I want to just kind of give you a feel for why they almost made it on the list and give you a better feeling for why the cards that are the 5 worst are on the list as they are. And it starts off with a couple of Fleer Ultra cards because Fleer and Ultra are cards that for basketball and hockey made a very big impact to the tune of they were almost all of the 10 worst between the two sports. In the case of football and baseball, the designs are a lot better, and you can see here with these Ultra cards, with the All-Star cards and the award winner cards in Ultra, that the cards have all the potential they need to be pretty terrible. In the case of the All-Star cards, this has some bright flashy text and some stuff that's kind of thrown onto the card. It's kind of a bit of a mess, and yet it doesn't fail because of the fact that, one, they have some really good strong colors that work well for the text, but two, the text has its own area where it's up, just kind of parked up there. All of the extra stuff is kind of tucked into the corners, and there's some space to breathe. The player is pretty clear on the card, but the big thing is when you look at the card, it's clear, it's straightforward, it's very distinct. I don't really like the card much, but I don't hate it because it's a card that doesn't really, it can easily turn into a train wreck, but they succeeded in crafting it well enough that it's clear and it reads properly. And when I look at it, I know what to look at and I know how to enjoy it. Award Winners is kind of on the opposite spectrum in terms of it's got a lot more potential to be a failure because the color barely works. This is a color that's almost lousy, but it does kind of work. And then it has kind of a cool baseball mitt kind of a look. The way that it has it looks like a close-up of a baseball mitt, but here's the thing, it's not. It actually has a gold metal theme where they have 2 discs, one at the bottom and one at the top. And I never noticed that till I was really paying attention to this card here in this list. I always just kind of assumed that it was baseball mitt because the color seems to imply that it's got some movement to the busyness that kind of feels that way. And so the award winner's text looks like it's just in a field of the leather, but it's not. And yet here is a case where they were trying to do something and they failed to do it. And the card ended up succeeding as a result of their failing to do what they were trying to do. So usually you want for the hard work that you put in to succeed in terms of coming across the way you intended. Here, I feel it's the exact opposite. And where this card really succeeds is that they have the big field over on the side where the award winner's text is at, and they have the 2 gold foil logos, but the gold foil logos you don't really see, and the award winner's text is very clear. And the player is very clearly separate from that in a busier part of the card, but he is clear. Everything comes through in a very clean and consistent fashion on the card where it comes across well. When you take the time to put a lot of work into a card, it can pay serious dividends. And both of these cards were trying too hard, but they actually pulled it off. So that is why they are here as honorable mentions. And then with Fleer's obviously not off the list, or off the hook either. But their Provision cards, again, this is something that succeeds where I don't feel that it really should. It's kind of like they hired somebody who is a baseball fan to do the art. And so with these baseball cards, the art comes through really well. In the case of football, it's kind of like they don't really like football, so the cards weren't done as well. And then it's like they hate basketball. But for whatever reason, the baseball cards come through in a way that I really do like. Although I do have to admit that I find it kind of weird that Matt Williams is very clearly on Angel Island, and why he's fielding the ball on Angel Island doesn't make sense because whether it's Candlestick or their new park, that's clearly a foul ball. So why would go all the way out there just to catch a foul? Just take a ball and go on to the next pitch. Kind of weird, kind of throws me off because I happen to know the real estate, but at any rate. And then I got to also mention about O-Pee-Chee. I really wanted O-Pee-Chee to be one of the 5 worst cards because at a quick glance, neither of these cards have any value for working, and yet they kind of do. I don't hate the cards. I want to hate the cards, but I don't. Look, they're bland, they're boring, absolutely, but they have a nice glossy finish, a little bit of gold foil, just the right things for the cards to work. Basically, it's not a train wreck. And that's kind of a celebration with the cards. Yeah, they're bland and they're just kind of there, but that's okay. I can live with this. Yeah, the bar is definitely pretty low. I mean, even when I move over to Don Russ for their long ball leaders, here we get into a card that it is anything but boring. This is a card that has, well, actually, this is kind of like what I was talking about with the All-Star cards, where here there's way too much text. There's no clarity to it. The text is supposed to be just kind of like a pattern behind, but it's not really a pattern. They have different fonts and different order, and so it kind of distracts you. And then it is a holofoil surface. And so that means that the holofoil surface makes everything on the card, nothing really stands out very clear. There are times when Ken is very clear on this card, and there are times when you can't even see him. So all that stuff's going on, but the big problem with the card is that, okay, so what is the name of this insert card? This is a quiz to see if you were paying attention. And the reason is because you can't read it on the card. It's actually there. That on the top left-hand corner, it says long ball leaders. You can't read it. In fact, the only thing you can read is the gold foil that says Ken Griffey Jr., 762 feet. And his name, okay, I get that, but the 762 feet, why is that the only other thing that you read on the card? You see the Don Russ logo, okay, you see that. But the fact is that the thing that is most missing on this card should be one of the most prominent things, which is the logo for the insert set. So here they're just doing way too much, and they have the holofoil, and that's not good. But not making it busy doesn't help, because for the Leaf statistical standouts, this is a card that's just super bland. And it has a whole chrome finish over the whole surface. I mean, the whole surface of the card. So not only does it lose points because the mirror chrome surface dilutes everything on the card, but everything that is on the card is boring. Again, not very good. And Leaf was really on a roll because they also had slideshows, which I also can't let off the hook. In the case of slideshows, it's a boring card. However, with slideshows, it does have the advantage of having the slide in it, which is kind of a cool little trick. I like the idea, but there are a lot of cards that have managed to succeed at doing this. This is a card that doesn't. So when you see it kind of glow, all right, their card kind of works, but when you can't see it, it is just super boring. And even when it glows, it's still kind of boring. I really want to have this on the list of the 5 worst, but I can't quite do that, in part because I do like the effect. I give it credit for that. But those are my honorable mentions, and you can see that I've talked about a lot of stuff because there's all of these have issues. Well, except for the Ultra cards, those actually did kind of work. But for the 5 worst cards, finally I'm getting to it, and it starts with Pacific Prism, the Silver Prism cards, specifically the discs. Look, I did not like the discs in football in 1993. I still don't like them here in 1994 in baseball. They had kind of a rain pattern kind of effect where it just kind of ran down. And it's an interesting idea, but it is really, it's too sterile. I'm not doing the triangular prisms. Those actually look pretty cool. And I do like the gold foil cards. The design on them isn't all that good, but I do like the gold foil cards, the way that they come across. So those both do not belong on this list, but the discs certainly do. At number 4, I'm going back to Ultra. And here I'm going with the Home Run Kings. This is a card that this lets me down because I love the effect. I really love it. You have a black background, and then you have a glowing metallic blue and red pattern that has so much potential. They could have done so many things with this card. Instead, they have a really awkward stencil pattern that isn't intriguing at all, doesn't work with the player, and this card is better than I give it credit for. The reason I have it on this list, again, is because it's such a letdown. You could have done so much with it, and they didn't. So where I started off this list with 2 cards that could have been train wrecks, but they worked hard and made them look good, here's the exact opposite. And then at number 3, I've got Fleer. Look, you can't have a 5 worst and not have Fleer somewhere on this list. But Smoke and Heat is the only one that fits on the list, and boy, does this deserve it. It starts off with having a chrome finish for the card, which is so tough to make work. But then the burnish of it is not even gold, it's kind of more like a bronze color. But it doesn't work to read in any way other than it's just a coloring of the background. And the background is just the text. It's just the text. It's just dumb, but it's the color. The particular color has a jaundiced quality to it. It just looks ugly. This is a card that absolutely looks like it was out in the sun too long and it's been damaged. This card looks damaged. It just does. Terrible. And as terrible as this is, it gives you an idea what I feel of the 2 worst. At number 2, I have Sportflix. Specifically, 3 of the 4 inserts for Sportflix in 1994. Now, the rookies look kind of cool, but these 3, they're just so under-designed. The images are good, the images are strong, I like that. The transition between the 2 images is crisp. Still, it's kind of you got to be up for the effect of these cards. But it's the fact that the design is so overly simple. They are bold, and that's an advantage. In fact, that's the only advantage they have. Well, okay. In one of the cases, I think it's the Shakers cards, it's overpowering, but still, at least it's bold. But the thing is, it's stuck on. It doesn't have anything to do with the card. There's no design. That's the thing. There's no design. And even the design that they have is so underdone. I mean, this, I think, is probably worse than what Playoff was doing in 1993 and 1994. So this is not at all a success. But as bland as these are, look, I got to give it to Leaf with their Gamers cards. This is just bad, bad, bad. First off, lousy portraits. Just really, I look at this card and I go, this is the same company that just 3 years earlier did 1991 Studio, where they had great portraits. Here, this looks like somebody just went to the police lineup, took a shot, and stuck it on the card. That's the way they feel. They feel like police lineup police lineup images. The design doesn't even do anything with it. It doesn't highlight, doesn't strengthen. It's just kind of here's the player. Whoop-de-doo. But that plaque, man, that plaque is terrible. I mean, at least it's not the whole base, but still it's a plaque. And it took me about 20 seconds when I was working on it, because I forgot what the name of this insert was while I was practicing for this. And it took me about 20 seconds to get the light right so I could finally read it. Oh yeah, it's Gamers. That's what it's called. And I had to memorize it so that when I did the video, so I don't have to look at it again, because you can't read it. The plaque just doesn't make sense. It's just slapped on there. This is an across-the-board failure of a card. Really lousy. Easily the worst of the insert designs for 1994 for baseball. And that's my list. So, let me know what you think about this with the video. I've already done the other 3 sports, so you can go check out what the other 3 are. And then, of course, next week I'm going to be looking at the worst across all 4 sports and figure out which ones really are the absolute worst. So definitely look out for that video. If you haven't subscribed already, definitely do so. And thank you very much for watching.